Hello and very warm welcome to the curtain raiser discussion for the ET Government National Governance Virtual Summit, which is scheduled to be held on March 11. The day-long program will focus on various facets of India's e-governance and how technology is becoming an integral part of government administration and public service delivery. Today, we have invited very senior public sector leaders who have spent years and years working on public service delivery, good governance, policy development, and building technology for public good. To lead the discussion, I am joined by Mr. Rajendra Nimje, Director General, Center for Good Governance, Government of Telangana. Mr. Nimje is an ex-Indian administrative officer. He has over 37 years of professional experience in the field of public administration, urban reform, e-governance, energy, infrastructure. He joined Center for Good Governance as a Director General in December 2016 and is continuously guiding in promoting administrative reform and transformational governance. We are also joined by Mr. Sanjeev Gupta, Chief Executive Officer of Karnataka Digital Economy Mission. Mr. Gupta is a very senior industry leader who has started as a deputy secretary in government, went to Microsoft, Accenture, IBM in leadership role, and now he is leading Karnataka Digital Economy Mission. I'm also joined by Mr. Ajit Reddy, Chief Executive Officer, Secunderabad Cantonment Board. Mr. Reddy is an Indian Defense State Service Officer. He's completed his BTech from IIT Chennai and joined the civil service after working in investment banking. Mr. Reddy is known for his technological innovation in governance and municipal administration. Before taking over as the CEO of Secunderabad Cantonment Board, one of India's largest cantonment board, he has served as a CEO of Dehradun, Agra, and Chennai cantonment boards. I'm also joined by Mr. Anand Trivedi, Director Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office with Niti Aayog. Mr. Trivedi is an MBA in Marketing and Finance and holds an engineering degree in Electronics and Communication, and have spent more than 11 years working in various organizations, starting with the Axis Bank, Hindustan Petroleum Limited, and most different organizations. Over with Niti Aayog, he has been primarily working on overall data-driven governance ecosystem, building a data-driven governance ecosystem by transforming the administrative data system. He has been leading a first of its kind data governance quality index initiative in collaboration with Prime Minister Office. I'm also joined by Mr. Kapil Kant, Joint Director, Center for Development of Advanced Computing, CDAC, based out of Mumbai. Mr. Kamal Kant has over 15 years of techno and managerial experience in delivering ICT project, leading large digital transformation, e-governance, and mobiles project. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us today for this special curtain raiser ceremony for ET Government National Governance Virtual Summit. Let me begin with Mr. Nimje, our senior most speaker today. Sir, what we have analyzed that during the pandemic that digital transformation agenda for most of the organization accelerated like never before. Uh, Based on your experience, because you work on administrative reforms a lot, what challenges do you see in the adoption of IT and e-governance in totality, and how those could be addressed? And if you could also share some of the experience in terms of the digital transformation that you have witnessed over the last 2.5 years, Mr. Nimje.
It's a pleasure that this curtain raiser is opening up on the issues which should be done and debated post-pandemic, we can say. Of course, we don't know about the next wave, but as on today, the things are accelerating, as you already said. And I would like to share some of the experiences, but what I will narrate, how it has happened, I will just take 1 minute that during the pandemic, because already governments are going online, they are providing various services, right from earlier hundreds of services. If you go to, I think, any state government or government of India, providing about more than thousands of services. through his CSCs and PSKs and various kind of outlets. So those things are really now gaining speed because people have understood that they can't go to government offices. They are now locked down, almost locked down, or then they can't go to offices. They're working from home. In that environment, more and more need of digital services is required. And with that background, what has happened is, that there are a lot of initiatives on the paperless office. Many state governments, including government of Telangana, they went now paperless. Earlier, we were doing various schemes are there, but government as such, e-office was not never implemented in a comprehensive way. So I think that took off. And then, though it was found that 50% of attendance, but the efficiency has gone up. I mean, the kind of services it makes dent on the public life has really improved. People can really access and they forget who is giving this service, like any other, whether public sector or private sector. It has improved a lot. Mobile governance has picked up, and just touching upon last but not the least about the digital payments. It has really changed the whole canvas about how do we transact, how do we exchange the money. At least for common man, when you go to the streets, even for making a payment of 10 rupees and 50 rupees, we can just make it on a Google Pay or Paytm and all now. So these are the things which have really accelerated, gain pace during the pandemic. And now post-pandemic, now you have asked a very relevant question. Now, how do we know what are the challenges still remaining? There are some challenges which are originally there and some challenges which are add-on with the technology. So I divided into, there are two sides. One is on the production side, one is on the consumption side. So let us talk about the consumption side, that the people or citizen, what are the challenges still remaining? The most important challenge in India today is still the infrastructure. When you want to access all these services, in urban areas probably we feel, but when I went to toured villages and I have seen that how difficult it is to access the services even today. So we can also, whether it is infrastructure, government is trying to take optical fiber to villages, including Telangana government. There is a big project which is almost near completion. But I am very sure almost all the governments, including Government of India, is very keen to see that digital access, number one, infrastructure, number two, including of course, the backbone in terms of electricity to various villages through solar and all will come in that. These are all the challenges. Access to devices, it was debated, and then the number of users of mobile users growing up very fast. But access to devices is a challenge, which we have seen in the Telangana also very recently during pandemic about the education, particularly education sector was hit very badly in the government. And we are still to recover from that kind of jolt. What we have seen is the device haves and have-nots have intensified. I think this challenge has to be addressed by, maybe it is happening by lowering the cost of the mobile devices, the reaching more and more smart devices to the villages through gram panchayats and other initiatives are there. Another challenge I have seen is a language barrier. Even then, many of our IT services still are in English, though governments are trying to reach through local language. Still, English is a dominant kind of service providing language, and we have to do a lot, though, I mean, on the local languages, because that is what people will understand while consuming these services. And there are, of course, Me Seva centers, like we call here CSCs in Government of India. Karnataka has its own special projects like Sakala and various other things are there. But I think there is a need to revamp that. And Telangana government has again taken a step in revamping Me Seva Center. They call Me Seva 2.0. So not only addition of services, but the way we deliver the services, the channel, the optimization of the bandwidth, the service, what are the redundancies, data, how minimum data we can capture and make best use of it. These are the things on consumption side. Production side, quickly I'll tell you. What we have seen is the old ghost is still haunting us, like the employee resistance in implementation of any kind of whether e-governance or IT services we are calling, is the employee resistance in mid-level is still very high. Particularly, I have seen in Government of India schemes, it is very, very difficult to overcome this challenge. Maybe We have to intensify our efforts through more and more training and all. There's one capacity building commission set up by Government of India very recently, last year, and they are trying to come out with the policies, and CGG is associated with them. So I am aware about that. So resistance to change is a major barrier. Another one is understanding the uses of technology. Reskilling and training, both levels are required, including the mid-level and high-level also. Like even the IS officers, particularly we are seeing this in emerging technology training. It is not like, you have drones, we have AI, ML, we have everything. But which technology is to be used where and how optimally it can be utilized? I think there is a change of mindset and a training to higher level officials, including Joint Secretary and above in Government of India level, is very, very required, because it is not few handful of people in MIT and in the state governments in IT department can make this change. Unless all of us know on this side how to leverage the technology, and then give, like, there are there are other challenges which are coming up, like the service technology developer, like CGG also provides e-governance solutions. What we have seen is there are old monolithic kind of solutions still being provided, and nobody wants that to be user friendly or take a look at that, particularly in the age of now virtual machines and containers. And these technologies provide us a service based architecture rather than the old monolithic architecture. I'm talking about the technology stack.
Right.
That, again, if you see, and then we have done some kind of survey about the various state government data centers. So horrible. I think we have to make a really revamp to this kind of technology stack. Data storage, because we generate and consume data like, I don't know, I mean, the whole servers will be full if we provide this 5G networks is coming up. That will be a major challenge, and government has to decide what is their data storage policy, what kind of data really is required to be stored, and what kind of thing can be uh, written off. Data privacy issues are there, and
Right.
of course, all of this, if you look holistically, the uh, governments have to come still closer. They have come closer by providing many IT services. Public is demanding IT services. But now, post pandemic, what we must do, in my opinion, is these challenges to be overcome by devising proper policies and addressing them as a priority. It is not like we can address agriculture as a different sector,
Right.
industry as a different sector. Backbone is IT. I think this is what we have to understand, and
Absolutely.
I feel we have to do a lot in this sector. This is what I think.
Right.
These are the challenges which we have.
Right. Mr. Nimje, I'll come back to you again. I think you raised a couple of important points. So if you can unmute yourself.
Sure.
So I think you raise a couple of very important points, and then I'll go to Mr. Gupta. Mr. Gupta, what Mr. Nimje was saying, that during the pandemic, different types of people having a different sort of access had a different experience in terms of accessing government services, in terms of their digital experience. So somebody might be having a smartphone; they were able to possibly do online classes in a on-the-go way, and if somebody has a quality bandwidth, it was quite helpful for them. But that was not the case across the country. I mean, non-metro areas might be struggling with the connectivity part, and so there is a different level of different experience for people. uh, so despite the fact that a lot of digital transformation has happened, but when we talk about the digital economy, we are primarily talking about an ecosystem where both compute, storage, and networking are in place. And on that highway, you are actually creating an economy which is ultimately helping your real economy, right? So, would you like to share your experience based on 2.5 years that you have seen, the kind of transformation that has happened, and some of the challenges that Mr. Nemjes mentioned, especially on the connectivity part, on capacity building part within public sector organization, as to how in a very organic and strategic way we can address that.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. I think the sir has already started up various variety of issues which is there on the board for us. But let me just give a little bit of numbers. Uh, India's domestic IT is around from $35 billion to $45 billion in last 5 years. So the growth of $10 billion in last 5 years, to me, it is unjustified. Number one. Number two, if we see the exports, around $100 billion to $150 billion. Pretty handsome, very proud of it. We all are very proud of it. That means that something needs to be done to look at the domestic consumption and domestic demand, what Sir was just talking about. Something drastically needs to be done here. Yes, the pandemic has created I would say, a point of thinking around all of us to say that how do we can leverage this as an opportunity for us to grow. Uh, in my experience so far, when looking at the way the consumption has been grown up hugely, I see the challenges comes back to the demand side, both from the application layer as well as your highway layer that you talked about. And in the highway layer, if I say primarily focusing on a couple of pointers, in my view, the innovation which needs to come on the type of solutions that can be made available for a consumption is very different now. Days are gone when you go to the portal and do the job. Completely gone. You require a gaming approach to get a services done. You require a WhatsApp approach to have a chat and get your application filed. The consumer's demand is very different than what was there 5 years back and has changed in last 2 years. The second point is the type of customers that we are trying to entail today is very different. Today, earlier we think about of urban local bodies and urban phenomena in terms of the IT consumption and IT services demand. But what happening today is the farmers are asking it. The farmers' kids are asking it. The vendors who are moving around from one street to another, they are demanding the services from us. And they are enabled with a so-called smartphone right now, a so-called technology which gives them the power to connect. Yes, if we as a young generation who's coming up in India, if we are not able to cater their understanding of the demand with the consumer insights that they brought in, we are missing the bus of what does the demand look like and what are the supply side is. So we need to think about of now classifying the client. Who is my client? My client is not the one which was there earlier. My client has changed. The profile of the client has completely changed. So the consumption. So I said one is the innovation side, which is required to be done. The second is understanding of the customer's demand, what they're looking at. The third one is, I think, which is very, very critical for all of us to look at who are the enablers when the e-governance or a solutions goes up. The bureaucracy is absolutely very critical. But bureaucracy, fortunately, we all are trained in, let's say, Lal Bahadur Shastri institutions. But that doesn't mean that we are great today in terms of the technology. We were trained a long time back. We need a training today in terms of what's happening on AI. How the AI is able to help in my agriculture field. How is AI able to help in my field of healthcare and education? All that learning needs to come back to me as well, and come back to me and my colleagues in the bureaucracy as well. But that is one domain, Mohammed, and the audience which are listening to me. I would say the second element of it is the customers itself enablement is required, because the wrong information can lead to a wrong demand and the wrong type of solutions as well. We need to educate our customers very nicely. Your demand is for what purpose and what type of technologies you can use. And so the safeguards of data security, their privacy, cyber security needs to come into play. Otherwise, they become like a catching fish. Anybody can go and catch them. So you need to put a system where the capacity for us required to be enabled on the new technologies, but enable for the consumers is required to understand that how you're going to use this technology. For example, let's say fintech, just for example, if we don't use a fintech properly with the safeguard of our cyber security and the data privacy, this is going to be a biggest problem for us coming forward. And we cannot stop this technology also, because this is helping our vendors, our economy to grow much faster. But what we need to provide is a enablement to our customers, to consumers, to understand that how they use the technology as well. And 300 million population, last 30 seconds is 300 million population, the young population which is coming in, just crossing the class 11th and class 12 into the big demand of the consumers. We need to think very differently for them. And that's what Karnataka Digital Economy Mission is also trying to put together long-term strategy onto this. Back to you.
Absolutely. I think you spoke quite well, especially on the part that we have to basically go back to everything, revise, and even the senior officers, in light of how actually next generation technologies are going to impact our governance model as to how we deliver our services to citizens. Uh, AI or machine learning, and maybe down the line in 5 years, we'll have a world where the metaverse will become more common. I mean, I still remember 7 years back when we used to do interview of any senior executive coming from USA. So they used to actually push cloud, 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 but they don't have to do now. Cloud has become a de facto platform for innovation, so they don't have to explain us. It's accepted. And I feel down the line, metaverse, something like that is going to happen. So we, as a public sector leader in the government, we have to actually also improve our capacity, our understanding of those new trends, as to how we can imbibe some of those things in public service delivery, in whatever we are internally doing, so that we are able to improve ourselves. Now I'll move to Mr. Ajit Reddy. Mr. Reddy, over the last 2.5 years, we also noticed that even the cantonment board actually went on digitization journey like never before. I mean, today most of your boards are integrated. The defense ministry is putting a lot of integrated platform in place. Would you like to share your experience as to how you looked at the pandemic, some of the challenges you faced, and some very good thing that you have been able to do over the last 2 years?
First of all, thank you for having me here. Uh, I mean, I have a different perspective than what was discussed by the esteemed panelist here. Uh, Before answering that question at the outset, I would like to take a minute or so to introduce those digital initiatives taken by the Ministry of Defense in the realm of defense land management as well as cantonment administration. I'm from Indian Defense Estate Service. My parent department is Director General of Defense Estates (DGDE), whose primary role is management of defense land across India. There's an approximately 18 lakh acres of defense land across India, and then there are 62 cantonments in the country. So, and the primary role of the department is management of defense land as well as administration of these cantonments. Now, in line with the vision of digital India to transform India into a digitally empowered society, MOD has led two key initiatives, one each in the sphere of defense land management, other in the administration of cantonments. All defense land records are digitized. That means to say all 18 lakh acres of digital the land that is there available under the Ministry of Defense has been digitized. Now the challenge for the ministry is that these digitized records to be used for the development of this country. The government of India, the Honorable the Defense Minister, has recently launched a portal, Defense Land Management System, a DLMS, which is put in place. That is expected to bring a lot of transparency and efficiency and speed in dealing with the land matters. But this defense land management system is an internal system; it's a departmental system. The second initiative which the MOD has taken is what you were referring to was e-Chavni. Chavnis are nothing but Chavni is called cantonments. For someone who are not aware, cantonment are areas where primarily meant to accommodate the military population and military installations. But there are it comprises both military as well as civil population also. Secunderabad cantonment that way is one of the largest cantonment in the country, both in terms of size and population. It's close to the population of Secunderabad cantonment is close to 4.5 lakhs. Now the cantonment boards are local bodies. We are like municipalities. We are there to provide civic services to all the residents of the cantonment. And as I said, the cantonments, we strive to maintain that ecological balance between ecological balance, but at the same time providing better civic services to the residents of the cantonment. And eChavni was one such initiative. It's a multi-tenancy portal that was created, comprising of all the 62 cantonment boards, and it has actually paved the way for a very faster delivery of services, which the cantonment residents would have ideally taken. Now, as far as the opportunities, what we have seen adopting this kind of technology. So my take would be primarily from the administration perspective. At the same time, giving glimpses of what the feedback that I got from the citizens. Now, for adopting this technology, it actually significantly transformed the way the cantonment boards, I mean, the local bodies have interacting with the citizens and the businesses in operation. One, they have a single window clearance for most of the services. The citizens or the clients need not go to any other place. They can come to one website and avail all kinds of services like trade licenses, birth and death certificates, and your online payment of your taxes and other bills, and community hall bookings, water connections, any civic communities that can be done, and also public grievance redressal too. And all these services actually can be which has actually benefited people in many ways. One, the convenience, the 24 by 7 they can do it at any time of the day or night. They can log into system and get any kind of service, and the service delivery has been very swift. For example, the trade licenses normally would take more than 3 to 4 weeks. Now we are able to give trade licenses within a short span of 5 to 6 days itself, which has definitely goes a long way in ease of doing business. And accountability, which is again a major important thing. It actually ensures a performance based accountability. Now we have dashboards. We can actually see each and every section how they are performing, what is it, how swiftly they are able to deliver the service, what exactly are the problems, the problems the people are facing. So it actually went a long way in also making a paperless administration, because we have also in the process of one advantage of going adopting technology is that we also try to minimize as many documents as required. And so for example, as on today, a citizen to avail any kind of benefit from a local body may have to submit 10 or 12 documents. But when in the process of digitizing this process, we'll try to reduce it to 5 or 6 documents, as minimum documents as possible. And it's a very cost saving mechanism, and it's also very easy for us for decision makings and supervisions, because as everything is available on the screen, so it
Right.
makes me as a chief executive officer to take decisions very swiftly and in a very easy way. So these are the opportunities which we thought has definitely helped and improved us a lot. uh, but at the same time, there are challenges, because now the biggest challenge for me is that I actually face people on a daily basis. So the problems are practical, the problems are real, genuine, on the ground. Now I have to find a solution, if I can call it a digital solution. I have to find a solution using technology to minimize or reduce or completely eliminate the grievance that is there. This is one of the biggest challenge, and adopting technology is not the same, as one of the guests was just mentioning. Adopting technology is not the same for all, and maybe that is the reason why I think there is not a pinpoint definition for digital transformation. Nobody can actually say this is called as digital transformation. It can be anything else. So that is a difficult task. And another practical issues, again, when we are moving everything into a digital platform, is the legacy data. There's a lot of legacy data that has to be digitized, as whether it is a land records, whether it is any other kind of records. So this legacy data has to be digital, which is not a small task, because while doing so, you even have to you should be in a position to provide services to the citizens without any intermission, and there should not be any loss of data. So which is again one challenge I find in transforming to digital. And again, the budget. I mean, we are in the at present, we are in the times of shrinking budgets, especially for the local bodies, and the priorities are always different. I mean, the investments that are to be made in the digital world, that also comes when a different priority is there. So we may have to forego the present, the adequate investment in the digital technology. And the other things was onboarding and digital culture, which is very important for me, because most of the staff or the employees that are there, it's not they do not see it in the same way that all the people, or maybe the head of the administration looks at it. uh, it's because one thing, we should also be careful that when we are adopting this kind of technology, it should not hinder the service that is already being provided by a certain employee or certain staff. We should not take it as we should not say it should not overburden him, or at the same time should not overwhelm him. So we have to be very careful in adopting this kind of technology. And
Right.
also, final thing which I wanted to stress is that the communication we are giving to the public, which is absolutely very important. How we are actually talking to the citizens, how we are able to communicate, because not even the citizens also, not many citizens are ready to go digital overnight. We need to persuade them. Some people adopt quickly, and we need to adopt some kind of discouraging methods, to go offline, whether we can levying such kind of fines and other things, and people are not ready to do that also. So these are the various challenges we need to we face while shifting to shifting online.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you raised a couple of very important points, especially, and that is very relevant to the next person I'm going, Mr. Anand Trivedi, because he takes care of the data. And earlier you mentioned about the land record management, and we understand even the state government as to how they use aerial photography to do the possibly digital transformation of land record, and that has actually helped them in terms of having a better record, in terms of reducing the civil cases in the court, and very easy mutation and transfer of the property. And a lot other than that, we see in the government, Mr. Trivedi, that we India has, as a digital as a public good, actually created a lot of different platform. For example, you have Aadhaar, you have UPI, you have GEM, you have GST, and you have a very high quality passport seva project. You have income taxation filing system in place under MMP project. Most of these platforms, both in the center and the state government, are creating huge data, and currently majority of them would not be aligned to each other. I'm sure they are actually somewhere in the silos, and there are effort being made to create a kind of data lake wherein a kind of policy could be drive out of that with the help of data analytics and some innovative tools that we have available right now. Would you like to share, especially given the fact that this is one area where you are specializing along with the Prime Minister office, how state and sub-national governance, I mean, up to the level of urban local body, can improve their data maturity? Because I mean, different organizations are at different level. I mean, somebody might be just having data, just keeping online. Somebody might be using HANA, or maybe a very high end level of data automation for anonymization from Oracle. So what should be the way out for a digital ecosystem where data becomes your source of truth, and from that source of truth you drive different things?
Thank you, Mohammed, and thank you for having me on this panel as well. I think your question, the current question, links extremely well because Nimja sir talked about how we need to ensure that these digitization of these services improves the citizen experience. Sanjeev sir talked about how exactly we need to think of it from an digital economy perspective, and Ajit ji talked about it from the point of view of the enabling of ease of governance. Now, if we just link all of these three aspects together, essentially what the work that we have been currently doing at Niti is an inside out approach towards digital transformation. And I kind of partly disagree with Ajit ji that there cannot be a single definition for digital transformation, because that is essentially what the data governance quality index exercise that we have been doing at Niti aims to do. To enable any open government data ecosystem, it is important that three key elements are achieved. First, as Ajit also mentioned, all our various services as well as our internal MIS systems, because there are a lot of administrative data systems which are not citizen focused. A lot of them are focused towards internal management of the government programs. All of them need to be digitized end to end 100%. All that means is we should have data for all of these programs, all of our services, granular, real time, high frequency, high quality data on a regular basis. The second important element is that once these data is available, as you rightly pointed out earlier, we need to have the digital highways to enable the seamless exchange of data across these silos. Now, these silos can be different divisions within the same department, different departments in a government, or eventually different governments, and ultimately, let's say, even government and the private sector. So That is the second key aspect. The third key aspect for enabling such an open government digital ecosystem is the synergistic use of data for policy making and decision making within the government. Now, to have that, it is important that there is this important aspect of capacities which is addressed, which has been stressed upon quite in detail. But at the same time, we need to also have understanding of the various use cases that are currently not available, but with the combinatorial value of data now being unlocked will become possible, and hence by leveraging AI, ML and similar technologies, we can implement those use cases in the government setup, in the public sector. So with these three aspects in mind, the data governance quality index exercise and the work that we have been doing at the central government and the framework that we have developed, what it does is it puts these three pegs as the benchmark pegs that any government agency, any department can aim to achieve. So, for example, on this index and a generalized idea of what we would call digital transformation, these three pegs once achieved would mean that a department has achieved DGQI score of 5 out of 5. And by enabling through a standardized framework measurement on a periodic basis, it enables each and every department to see where they are on that journey. Are they at 2.5? Are they at 3.5? How far are they from the 5.0 score? Which essentially means these three aspects of open government digital ecosystem have been achieved. That is the key aspect of the data governance quality index as it enables it. Now, the second key question is, while you measure it and you know where you need to go in terms of the 5 out of 5 score, the data governance quality index exercise also provides guidance on in-depth pathways that different departments and ministries, be it at the central government level, the different departments in the state government, or even, let's say, for example, the local offices at the districts or the urban local bodies, what are the different pathways that they can take to achieve this frontier 5 out of 5 performance, which essentially means achievement of open government data ecosystem in a time bound manner. So basically it talks of three key interventions. First intervention is to break the silos of data. We need to start thinking from a systems perspective, stop thinking from a systems perspective and start moving towards an ecosystems perspective. Now, that transition from a system to ecosystem in the mindset of our IT systems designer is extremely important. When we are designing, are we having a system which is open, interoperable, unbundled in its own sense, so that tomorrow all these bundles can talk to each other? We are starting to see a lot of that work happening with the National Open Data Ecosystem Strategy by MIT and subsequently many other steps like NDAER for Ministry of MHRD and so on and so forth, the Ayushman Bharat Digital Health Mission, so on and so forth. So we're seeing a lot of transition there. The second key aspect is to enable this transition, the institutional mechanism needs to be rethought. Currently, in each of our departments, we have divisions, and each of these divisions are in charge of those specific IT systems which they are leveraging to implement the programs. We need to have a data strategy unit which is housed within each and every department, which breaks these silos firstly within the departments and starts enabling data exchange between the departments going forward. So that data strategy unit should basically pull in all the various capacities of statistics, of monitoring, of data analytics, which are all spread across within the department, pull that in and have that embedded in a single unit, have it headed by a senior officer, and which basically reports to the heads of the departments, the principal secretaries or the secretaries in case of the central government. The second key intervention is, once this DSU, the data strategy unit, is in place, it has to make an action plan which can allow the department to move towards the frontier open government digital ecosystem performance or a 5 out of 5 DGQI score in a time bound manner. So that is the second intervention that DGQI proposes. And then once these two are in place, the third and the most important element that Nimjay sir and Sanjeev sir have been talking about, which is capacity building. Now we know for a matter of fact that we have statistical capacities in our departments. We have capacities in terms of monitoring at plan units and the budget units who look at the financial performance of the elements. But we also need to have, and then there is NIC, which is within our departments always talked about as an adjunct to our main departments. We need to change that. We need to have a unit where NIC, these monitoring and the program divisions, and then an additional capacity of data analytics unit needs to come together, and they need to start working as a holistic, de-siloed unit. So that and then they should have action plans in place to move towards the frontier performance in a time bound manner. And capacity building, as far especially in data analytics, as Sanjeev sir rightly mentioned, how can we mainstream through, in partnership with organizations like capacity building commission, how can we mainstream what basically is data analytics and digital ecosystems as a basic concept? How can we mainstream that in our trainings, not just in the labasnas of the world, but also in the ATIs, CTIs across the entire chain? Because it has to be through the entire value chain, including the joint secretaries as well as across the levels, right, flowing up to the under secretaries, because then and only then ideas can seamlessly flow within these program divisions. So these are the interventions that the data governance quality index framework proposes to move towards such an open digital ecosystem.
Absolutely. I think one of the important point in your remarks is the ecosystem. And I'm very happy to note the fact that India is actually aggressive on ecosystem. We have created a payment ecosystem, UPI, and the kind of fantastic results it has given. And if you look at the National Health Digital Mission, that is also a kind of ecosystem. And very important thing that is coming, I believe, down the line in 2 years, which the committee has been set up, is ONDC, Open Network for Digital Commerce. I mean, that is also going to be a kind of ecosystem which will basically completely democratize as to how we do digital e-commerce. And that also brings to the part of India's tryst with indigenization. That as a country, we want to be self-dependent. We want some level of greater sovereignty in some area in our data management. In some of the areas where we do not have a greater exposure, we would like to create those things. We would like to experiment within the country in those things. And there, actually, organization like CDAC is playing a greater role. Other day I was speaking to the DG, and he was telling me that at the server level, CDEC is working to create an indigenous server within India, and which could be used. So far, we have been actually getting it from our partners from different countries. And that brings me to Mr. Kapil Kamal Kant. Uh, Mr. Kant, I'll ask you on the National Mobile App Store. I mean, one of the program that you are associated with and that has shown a great result over the last many years, especially in relation to the government focus of Atmanirbhar Bharat, as to how we need to create indigenous things. And would you like to share? Because I mean, over 1,800 organizational and individual developers are already integrated with the platform and and they are availing different kind of authenticity services. How has been your experience of implementing such a huge technological innovation at a large scale? If you could share.
Yeah. So thank you so much for inviting us for this session. First of all, as you see, in the last 2 years, the digital transformation of mobile application has increased rapidly, and consumer behavior has also changed. And many government department as well as the private companies, they are willing to provide their services through the mobile applications. So now we are come up with the own Indian app store, that is mobile seva app store. We have developed first endogenous app store, and at that we are developing, so the glitches was there, and way forward is not so much easy. So first we will provide this mobile app store is launched for the only for the government departments. After that, the mighty and the government direction, it is now open for the private player also, private players, universities, as well as the individual developers, whatever they will provide the public services to the citizen. Now the main important part of this app store basically is the security. Now the many applications are available in the various app store, that is a basically the copied application. It is a reverse engineering, and they will provide the fake applications also. So now the government is main focus about the security, so that we can create our own in-house training lab, testing lab, so that whatever the applications we have received on the mobile seva app store, we will check thoroughly. So each and every application that will be developed by the private players as well as the government sectors and the individual developers, we will test the application thoroughly, and we will divide the applications in the three categories. Like basically, first of all, it is a generic applications, that is basically static application. Some is a dynamic application where they will check they will call some third party APIs. And third one is a very important part, is a basically the payment applications. So now we will divide our testing is a three different patterns. So now the different type of testing use case we will perform for each and every applications. So mainly focus at the time of testing, we will mainly focus, we will check the data secure storage. So whatever the applications taking data, they will store in the locally or not. We will check the data, no sensitive data will be stored locally. There is no sensitive data will be stored in the application logs. There is a no sensitive data will be exchanged during the transaction, that will be secure. So we will check the, in case the application will use the third party APIs, so that will be secure APIs, and that will APIs is working on the HTTPS. So that the, if the case the application data, the primary the information of the user, it will travel to the one server to another server, that will be securely. Then third important part, that is a secure logic. Many developers are know how to develop a secure application. So we will provide the developer user manual and the policy documents, so that the developer can develop the application securely, so that the reverse engineering not be possible. And the main another important part, we will check during the testing, the what are the permission is taken by the application, that permission is required by the application or not. In case the application is taking so much permission and it is not required at the time of when the application is using by the citizen, so we will intimate to the developer. And another part is, we will check the whatever the secure algorithm they are using in the application, there are securely encryption techniques, hashing techniques is used by the developers. And thirdly, the secure authentication. Authentication is very important part right now. So we will check the application is securely authenticate the user. And whatever the finding we will test the during the testing, we will share the complete report, testing report to the developers. And we will also provide the user manual to the developers, so that they can fix the vulnerability easily, and they can resubmit the application in the mobile seva app store. Basically, the government main focus, whatever the application, the Indian application is coming on the Indian app store, that is the basically trusted and hosted, trusted and secure application, so that any citizen can download the application from the mobile seva app store. That is a trusted and secure application.
Right.
Now you see in the during the pandemic, in the last 2 years, the research is also showing that basically the 90% of user is using the mobile application. Only the 10% of user is use the browser based website or avail the government services. So now the government is also come up with the various mobile application, like Umang is there, Arogya Setu is there, Passport Seva is also there. So many mobile applications are there by the government, and user is also very easily access the government application and avail the government services through the mobile applications. So now the government is come up with their own policy, so that we are not dependent on any other country for hosting of the mobile applications. So we are come up with our own policy, so that any Indian developer Indian application can be hosted easily. And right now it is a free of cost. There is no we are not taking any charges for the hosting as well as the testing. The testing is also completely free, and we will share the complete report to the developer. And we will take the 2 days time for the complete testing, VAPT testing, security testing. We are divided is our two testing patterns. Basically, one is a static testing and another is a dynamic testing, so that any user we will get the report and tested the application free of cost. So main focus of our Indian App Store is basically it is a free of cost, and we will encourage the developers, Indian developers. It is belong with the private as well as the government sector, so that they can come and they can host the application, and we will provide the complete report and complete testing report to the developers. So our main focus is basically on the security, so that we can provide the secure and trusted app store for India, and then the any Indian developer can host the application.
Right.
Now over to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think Mr. Gupta is basically a foundation for a digital economy, wherein you are having a UPI path for a payment, you are having an e-commerce path in the form of ONDC, then you have India App Store, okay, where you don't have to pay that 30% most of the people are paying on Apple App Store or Google App Store. So I think maybe it will take time, but the direction and a different heterogeneous way that we have been working and trying to bridge all those gaps that we have not done in the past is really a very good way and a better way forward. So before I come to you, Mr. Gupta, I'll go to Mr. Rajendra Nimje, and I'll request all of you to make your answers short, just maybe around 60 seconds, because in the first round we have taken 45 minutes and we have now 10 minutes left with us. So I'll go earlier. Most of you have touched upon the role of emerging technologies and what Mr. Anand Trivedi was mentioning about the data and the heterogeneous data or silos data, and we need to bring and we need to actually bring value out of that, and what Mr. Ajit Reddy earlier talked about and Mr. Gupta also mentioned. Among all these, there is a fine line that you need to have a very high level of workflow and automation, and that can only be provided by automation like artificial intelligence, machine learning, or any other form of technology hinge on cloud that will actually enable you to do a lot of things. Uh, would you like to share your view as to how India can become a kind of Atmanirbhar within this next generation technology? Because most of these are proprietary, and we do have a lot of work to do on the capacity part on these.
On the emerging technology, I think all of us know who are at least participating here, it is the future. So there is no doubt the kind of speed and then kind of which India is moving, I think it is in sync with what the requirement of the time today, particularly the AI and ML is changing the whole landscape, the way we are delivering our services, and the other emerging technologies are also going hand in hand. So let us take the simple technology of moving to cloud. So cloud technology has changed the whole landscape of delivering government services. During pandemic, we were only there were a lot of issues how to handle so many data centers which are manned by government. But when it is on the cloud, we are not linked to one geographical limited locations. So we are once we put our applications there, the backup, the storage, the kind of auto switching, auto scaling, all these things are available for us. So I think the India, what looking forward is more and more services are going to become cloud based, more containerized, and more kind of targeted what exactly we want instead of the, as I said earlier, the bigger monolithic applications. So this is one area. Another one which I think immediately is about the blockchain technology, which has not been fully tapped. Blockchain technology actually ensures that data is totally transparent end to end. People can rely on it, and that kind of technology is only tried and used to a limited extent in land. I think it can be used in most of the schemes of government because finally what we are delivering is the truth. That kind of confidence boosting will happen only we switch over to the blockchain technologies, which is happening. More and more platforms are coming up. When we started, particularly in CGG also 3 years back, there were only limited hyperledger and very limited choice of platforms. Now we have many more platforms which are indigenously developed and deployed also. Another one important thing in these areas, all are we are our startup culture. I'm taking little 1 minute more, but startup culture, I think we must mention. This is what our youngsters, which you mentioned, the consumption pattern also in 15 plus age group, which is our backbone and our strength, and also they are contributing to this revolution. I can say the particular services which you are looking for are being developed by the startup culture. Government of India, various state governments. Again, we have a T hub which is now I think it is well known in India, that we started about 7 years back, and it is one of the major contributor to the startup culture. We offshoot into V Hub and other kind of centers. Now coming to AI and ML, I think the potential is really, I mean, it is a nascent stage, it is untapped. More and more we are, it is a combination with big data will change the landscape. That is what I feel. More applications are being come up. Our thinking itself will change. How do we deliver the services? As Sanjay Gupta ji was telling, how do we leverage this is one thing. How do you think in that direction at all? Futuristic, which you have not thought over. I think I'll leave it here and
Right.
other speakers can contribute. Thank you.
Right. If you can unmute yourself, mute yourself, sorry. Yeah. Mr. Gupta, and I'll come to you and I'll relate it to the challenges in public sector organization cloud face initially. And that was not because of the fact that the cloud was a great platform and cloud could have given anything. It was absolutely, it was showing great result in enterprise world, but there was a dearth of understanding or appreciation of a technology, not because the technology was bad or inferior, because we did not have the capacity in our public sector, also the trust factor. And that is why it took some time. It took some time to create a body which can actually impanel and do that. Today we have, and we are actually adopting. Now, if you relate it to the next generation technology, especially AI, machine learning, and I'm discounting blockchain because of the fact, until unless government changes its financial rule, the blockchain imbibement in the government will be a bit difficult, and that means you need to go through your assemblies and parliament, uh, right? So what I would like to understand from you, how we can create this appreciation of next generation technology, because we do see some green shoot happening in Telangana in agriculture, happening in Karnataka somewhere, but a cohesive, a very large scale AI project which could show a kind of example that will actually create a kind of acceleration for different state government to imbibe. That is not there right now, right? As to how we can actually bring that.
Thanks, Mohammed. I would say if Honorable Prime Minister has given us a vision for $1 trillion digital economy, uh, I'm pretty confident that if states like Karnataka or like Telangana doesn't stand up and contribute to that, it will be difficult for India to achieve that target. We need to stand up more. That stand up more takes up more responsibility on our shoulders. And the responsibility comes up is that how much you looking from your state GDP perspective. We are looking at Karnataka, 40% of our state GDP coming up from digital economy. Now, this is a steep target. If we want to look at it, then we design those strategies to adopt. And strategy cannot be done in isolation by government alone. Strategy has to be done in collaboration with an industry. And industry has to be coming in partner and putting together from their perspective what they need. And accordingly, the government has to provide a support mechanism to do those activities. And if we do not do this, what I want to say is the driving seat has to be occupied by the industry to design the transformation of a digital economy, what we aim for. And government has to provide that entire support mechanism to that. One point. Second, we're coming to the part of the emerging technology which is required. The trillion-dollar digital economy, the base on which we are looking at growing is not coming out from a traditional technologies. It is coming from these emerging technologies. In fact, it is estimated around 30% of the digital economy transformation contribution will come from these emerging technologies. One statistics, and you have to give me a couple of minutes now because this is my favorite topic to talk about. 2 million skills are required only on these emerging technologies, 2.5 million in India level. Imagine the demand of the talent which is there in this country, requirement by industry right now. India and in Karnataka being the highest, let's say we provide 35% of the talent of AI in India. We are the highest. Okay, thank you so much for that. But the gap is so big. That's not enough for us. We also need to plug in and find out on supply side. The course content, the curriculum for those programs needs to be designed what industry looks at it. And then scale those operations to bring it up. Karnataka has the largest, 90 colleges providing AI-based and ML-based programs across it. Again, I'm saying this is not sufficient. So now the other transformation that we need to do is create some examples. the examples of emerging tech clusters. The emerging of tech clusters providing those impetus at the level of Hubli in, let's say, Karnataka, which is demonstrating the capability of AI, not only from the area of rural innovation, but AI serving the world. So today you have an AI-based company setting up their operations, AI-based incubation centers actually serving the rural innovation. So you need to create that examples in it to both backward and forward linkages in order to showcase the capability of that emerging technology. We have multiple examples on the AI-based technology which has come up, which has been showing the example. For example, Art Park, supported by the DST and Government of Karnataka. Amazing work in healthcare. If you see during the COVID period of time, the entire scanning of the X-rays was done on AI-based applications. How it can be amazed and happen in real time, the PSC doctors, the doctors of CSC level are able to use the technology. Now, these are examples which comes up, but we need to amplify these examples to a larger audiences. At the Niti Aayog level, where Anandji is sitting, at the level of the PMO level, where we need to go and talk about a report on AI, report on ML, report on rural innovations, boost the
Right.
social entrepreneurs. Last point from my side onto this part is the $1 trillion economy will not come from Bangalore, Hyderabad, or from Chennai, or from Mumbai. It will come from our emerging tech clusters. And we need to now shift our gear completely towards looking at the industry pain point to address in these clusters on the emerging technologies. B, we need to look at the talent availability from these part. The C, the livability of those people around us. And the last, when Anand Trivedi was talking about an ecosystem, has to be established in the ecosystem of that clusters. And fortunately, we are putting together a great effort, so-called as Beyond Bangalore. And that is turning around the story of what we say 40% of GDP will come from there. 10 seconds more. The startup incubation center, which is becoming a very important element, also needs to plug in at this level. The guys from Udupi can become a unicorns. Fair enough. Karnataka has largest unicorns in India. But how many unicorns are coming from the emerging tech clusters? This needs to be pinpoint and address an issue on this part. Can we say that 5% state GDP will come from startups? We are saying that. And this state of GDP will come from startups only when we say at the level of these emerging tech clusters. So we need to put up an ecosystem of startups at the level of Mysore, Mangalore, Hubli to provide that ecosystem and connect with the world. So not going to Bangalore, not going to Hyderabad, but from here you can then look at the businesses across. I think we have a great hope here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now I'll go to Mr. Reddy. Mr. Reddy, earlier you mentioned about the kind of work that your organization and you have been doing, especially in relation to digital transformation and imbibing technology at different level, from land record management to redressal grievances system. Would you like to share in brief, maybe in 30-40 seconds, what are your immediate key priorities right now?
Well, I would like to borrow a couple of things from the panelist here. One thing, the emerging technologies which we can watch for is in terms of municipal administration as well as other things is the GIS based technology. I think there is a lot of scope for the GIS based technology. Once it is adopted, it's going to be a game changer in many formats where there are already a few local bodies that have adopted these technologies. It can be used, for say example, for protection of your government lands. It can be used to increase your revenue generation. We can plug the tax defaults. So there are many opportunities there in the GIS based system, which the Ministry of Defense has already taken initiatives in this regard. One such initiative has been, we started giving online water connections based on GIS module. Which is again a game changer. I think it's first of its kind in the country, where GIS-based technology is used to give an online water connections. So this is one aspect where one of the key priorities is that one of the three priorities is that to embrace more and more technology, to embrace more technology-oriented solutions in order to increase the efficiency of the administration in terms of your control or supervision, or in order to increase your revenue. The second priority, which I would say, is that again I would the another speaker said about data analytics, which is a very, very important thing, because the data is being captured at various levels, but we really do not know how this data has to be analyzed and how it can be, utilized again in the future. That's one priority. And the final thing which I would like to say is that, again, the organization culture, which is again a very important, because these organizations are manned by the people. The organization culture has to be changed. We have to we have to the organization has to be embrace more and more technology, and they should be open to such kind of things, whenever even in the future. So if these are the key priorities which I think that, the municipal administration, and especially another, from the defense land management point of view, are required at this stage.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll go to now Mr. Anand Trivedi. Mr. Trivedi, earlier you mentioned about the DGQI and explain in detail. So I'll be asking you slightly different thing, and attaching it to what Mr. Sanjeev was talking about. He was talking about the fact that we need to disperse our IT hubs. It's no longer will be, if you are talking about the $1 trillion economy, possibly it will come from Karimnagar in Telangana, or maybe a tier 3 cities in different parts of the country, actually, right? And industry and the government collaboration has to increase, because in emerging technology space, the kind of work that the industry has done and the level that they have gone over the year, they have invested a lot in terms of the research and R&D. And obviously they are the one who can actually tell us how best you can utilize technology, and we can decide what kind of work we are doing and how actually we can implement them. That means we need the dispersion of our center, and second, we need to create a better trust, I think, trust between both the party. And that is one of the area, if we are able to address, and possibly a lot of small things could be addressed quite easily. And in this area, Niti Aayog as a body, over the last many years, I believe, not only with the research that you have done in the past, also over the last 7 years, that I have been noticing that there is a lot of effort being made to create a platform, especially in immersive technology. I mean, creating a platform where uh, organization which has an expertise could come and could suggest government. Would you like to share your view, especially on emerging technology, why we need a greater synergy between different stakeholders?
Sure. I mean, couldn't agree more. And as you rightly pointed out, at Niti, we have a dedicated cell which looks at emerging technologies and how to kind of mainstream that within the government as well as in the public-private partnership collaborations. So essentially, for the ecosystems approach to really materialize, we talk a lot about the technological elements, and that holds true across sectors. Health education, we are already seeing. If there have been close to 10 sectors where it's believed that the open digital ecosystems will unlock the value of $700 billion in the next 10 years. So in order to achieve that potential, I couldn't agree more that the public-private partnership space is extremely important. Now, what are the nuts and bolts of this broad thing called public-private partnerships? It's extremely important that there are going to be a whole set of services which are going to be unlocked. So, for example, we talk about the national AI strategy that Niti Aayog has come up with. There are different kinds of anonymization services. There are various types of tagging services which it talks about, and all of those have to be provisioned for and considered for, let's say, the skill development mission. Now we need to unlock those, we need to break those pieces down, look at what are the new professions which are going to come up, and ensure that required skilling is taking place through the public private partnership space. Secondly, it is extremely important that when we talk about public private partnerships, the key element of use cases that the government is facing, because the understanding of the problems that the government has and which need to be addressed through technology and the private sector's experience needs to be converged. And to be able to do that, there needs to be a mechanism where seamless sharing of the use cases and technological collaborations happen at scale. Because as we said, for these hubs, we need to scale these hubs up, and we have various initiatives at Niti which is enabling that by mainstreaming these initiatives. The third important and the most critical part is that how do we, so even if we just think about the public sector innovation space, we know for a matter of fact that the government data collection process and the data administrative data systems, once the overall quality of this data improves, how can we actually open up some of this data for innovations that Nimje sir was talking about to happen on top? We are already seeing that in agriculture, as you pointed out, in Telangana, in Maharashtra, and other states. How do we do that across sectors? Because that is how we will actually indigenize the applications of AI ML to actual public service delivery problems in the Indian context. So skill building, opening up the data and ensuring required public private partnerships, and third, improving the overall quality of the data, because AI ML is as good as the quality of the data that feeds into it. Those are the first things first which we need to get in place for us to unlock that value of $700 billion. Thank you.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you. Now, to the last question, I'll go to Mr. Kapil. Mr. Kapil, during the pandemic, we also realize that the resiliency has become really important. I mean, whatever you are doing and whatever you are planning in terms of the IT implementation, please ensure that it has to be resilient. So, if tomorrow anything like that happen, or like pandemic like thing happen, you are able to mitigate on the go. Would you like to share the way forward for digitally empowering our ecosystem and making it a future ready?
Yeah. So basically, we are moving forward day by day to get the App Store future ready. Now we are mainly focused for the App Store is ready for the local language. Now the whatever the application is coming, so that applications are compliance with the local languages. Then secondly, we will provide the more category, because in the our App Store there is a different type of categories. So we will provide the more categories so that the developer or as well as the citizen can easily find out the application based on their category. And third were the trust through the blockchain technology. So we will implement the blockchain based system so that the trust can be built. Third one is basically we will provide support to the citizen as well as the developer through the AI based support. We will provide the AI technology, we will use the AI technology so that we can provide the better support to the citizen. And our team, we will provide our app store technically strong, so that we can take the whatever the request coming from the India, from the citizen side as well as the developer side. We will cater it, and we will enhance our infrastructures so that the load, whatever the load we will take from the Indian applications. So we will cater through the our servers. We will move to the cloud-based technologies. We will use the latest technologies, and we will compliance with the all type of security compliance. And we will also integrate with the payment services so that the application, the gaming application and other applications, whatever the application is require the payment support, so we will provide the support. So day by day we will increase, and way forward we will ready for the futures with the latest technologies like blockchain, AI, other technologies, and we will enhance our app store. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mr. Nimje, Mr. Ajit Reddy, Mr. Anand Trivedi, Mr. Kamal Kant, Mr. Sanjeev Gupta, I think you all spoke quite well, especially around the COVID-19 challenges and as to how technology came into picture and some of the challenges on the capacity part that we are facing. And also your views, especially Mr. Anand Trivedi, very eloquently explained the role of data in governance and why we need to first purify the data. And based on that data, your AI, ML, and whatever you want to build, those could be actually utilized for improving the government services. Mr. Nimje views, especially around emerging technology, as to why we need to move towards this and why we need to consider that. Also, Mr. Sanjeev Gupta talked about the digital economy and the India's dream of $1 trillion digital economy and some of the nuts and bolts and the pieces that we need to put in place to achieve that. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for being such a wonderful panelist and sharing your views. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to
Same here.
interact with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.